How can you get your team to be more productive? Why is it that they're not as productive as you expect them? That's exactly what we're covering today on this first wave about lean team management here in the Leadership Boat. If this is your first time here, welcome aboard the Leadership Boat. Today we are writing one specific wave which has to do with lean management applied to teams. And we're going to be using the Ishikawa or Fishbone Diagram, which is a cause-effect diagram. There are many of these. We're going to use this one in specific because this one comes from lean management. And this is lean management for teams, for team performance. So we are going to learn how is it that we can use this diagram in specific to increase your team performance, to increase your productivity, and to increase your results as well. So are you excited? Let's get started. So the Ishikawa or Fishbone diagram, essentially it's this kind of diagram, and it looks like a fishbone. That's also why we call it Fishbone Diagram. And this is a cause-effect diagram, which means that we're going to have an effect, and then we're going to understand what are the causes of it. Now, if you've seen this before in lean management, today we're talking specifically about the different areas that might affect your team performance. So we're going to go into that in a few more details just in a few minutes. Right now, I'm going to explain to you how this works. So essentially, you have here an effect, right? So there's something that is happening that you don't want that much to happen. So let's take a personal example to understand it at first. Let's say that you are feeling extremely tired. So that is the effect. You are very tired. That is the behavior that you are observing. You're feeling very tired. And what are some of the things that might be causing you to feel tired? There's a lot of things that might cause someone to feel tired, right? There's the diet, let's say. There's their sleep routine. There's, for example, their exercise routine. There might be other things, so for example, work or hobbies or something else. So there are different classes of causes that might lead you to feel tired. And that's the big advantage of this type of diagram, specifically of the Fishbone diagram, is that it will help you to go over different classes of potential causes to really understand and to really identify, what is the one that is actually causing me to be tired? So for example, you can look here at these different things and you might say, look, I don't exercise that much, but I do some exercise. So it's kind of, let's say, in that here you put some kind of exercise. So for example, you run, sleep. Let's say that you don't have the recommended 8 hours a day, but let's say that you have 7 hours a day. Then for example, here work, let's say that you actually have good challenges, but that you don't feel that stressed out about it. So you say, I don't know, challenged, but no stress. So for example, and let's say that then on your diet, because you are rushing everywhere, you're actually eating out a lot. So eating out a lot. So for example, from all of the potential causes that might lead you to be tired, it might be that by doing this, you will understand that the eating out a lot might be the one that is actually causing you to feel more tired because you are eating less quality food. So this is one example, a personal example, right? So from your personal sphere of how to use this diagram. Now let's talk about how you can use it for your team. Originally, this is used in manufacturing, and originally they already have a certain set of potential causes for you to explore. In manufacturing, you have man, machine, material, method, and measurement. If you adapt this for marketing, you might have more than these, and you can choose, you can have more ramifications. And you can choose the categories that make sense for you. So in marketing, for example, you can use product, price, place, promotion, people or staff, process, physical evidence, and performance. For services, they use this with different categories: surroundings, suppliers, systems, and skill. So for team management, what are the categories that we're going to use? You can always choose different ones according to what your reality is. So if you are in a service industry, maybe you want to add some things that are specific from services. If you want to add something from development, you might want to add the tech stack or the methods of working. For other areas, you might want to add other things. But here in the specific scope of team management, there are a few areas that I'm going to recommend to you. So the first one is going to be resources. So let's write here resources. Resources mean things that you need to have, resources that you need in order to be able to perform. So maybe, for example, if you are understaffed, you don't have enough human resources. So maybe instead, if you have one person to do the job of 3 people, then they are overwhelmed and they don't have enough time to be able to do that. So that's also a resource. But then more practically is essentially things like you don't have the right software to be doing certain things. You don't have the right resources in terms of connections. You cannot have the resources internally or externally with partners to be able to do something. So for example, in a lot of companies, we outsource, let's say design for graphic design is outsourced. If you don't have the connections within your company to outsource the design of something to the marketing department, or even to outsource it to an external partner, then you're lacking the resources to be able to move forwards and to perform to the levels that you want. So these are a few examples of resources that might be missing for your team to perform. The second one is information. So let's write here information. So information is obviously the information that you need in order to move forward. So maybe you don't have all the information that you need on the briefing of a certain task. Maybe there's some information that you need from external parties or from other departments that is not coming to you for you to have enough information to make a decision or to develop a certain product, a certain feature, a certain activity. So information might be missing, and that's also important. Then we have collaboration. So collab. So collaboration, here you might have an issue both in terms of over collaborating and not collaborating at all. So for example, if you have everyone collaborating in the same project, it might make it more difficult for you to make decisions. It might make it more difficult for everything to be approved because it needs to go over so many people. So it might be that the way that you are collaborating is holding back your team from moving forward. And it might also be that you do have people who are just working individually. They're not collaborating in projects and they could actually help each other to move forward, and they're just not collaborating, so that's not happening. So collaboration is also an important one. Then we have communication, which is a lot of people's favorites. So communication. Communication usually is a foundation of things that happen between people, because usually, of course, people communicate a little bit differently. So there is room for misunderstandings, there is room for things to happen. However, when you're looking at team performance overall, communication might be something that you're going to fall very easily into. And really take a look at the other ones, because it might be very easy for you to say, yes, it's our communication, we need to communicate more effectively. And the truth is that maybe it's not your communication and it's, a lack of information, or it's a lack of something else. So what is communication here? Communication has to do with your communication channels. Maybe there's someone communicating by email, someone communicating on Slack, someone communicating on Facebook, someone communicating on another platform. And that might be that you have too many communication channels. So, people don't use the same channel. So then there's communication gaps and communication lost. It might also be that you don't have certain moments specific for communication. So for example, if you have a sales team and you don't have a meeting regularly, it might happen that because you don't have a specific time where you communicate about what you're doing, you will have 2 people on your sales team who are approaching the same potential client. And this is an example of communication cause for your problem. The following one is processes. So let's write here process. So the process on how you work, it might be that you have a process that is very long. So usually this is what we imagine as something that is more bureaucratic, something that takes a lot of steps to get done. And sometimes when you are working in a team, it might be that your process implies that you have to go through so many steps, and sometimes some of them might be not needed at all and might be holding back your performance. Your process has to do with how is it that you perform a certain task, and we're going to talk more about the process in one of the upcoming waves, so make sure that you are on board so that you can catch the next wave where we talk specifically about how is it that you can improve and optimize the processes within your team. And finally, we have alignment. So alignment, let's say, alignment is everything that has to do with your goals, with your mission, your vision, your values, your principles. How do you decide to work? How did you communicate that you're going to work together? So whether you are aligned or not, because for example, it might be that you've decided that you all communicate through Slack, but there's this one person who just communicates with email. And there's a misalignment because in the expectations that you set, you really talked about, okay, we are going to be aligned and to work together, and we agreed to work on Slack, for example, and to communicate on Slack. And maybe there's someone who is not aligned with that and who uses something else. Now, this is a very particular specific example. It might also be that when it comes to your team goals, you have defined a certain goal, but there are some people who believe that the goal or the measurement is not the right one, and that we should be working towards something a little bit different. So that means that people are not aligned. It might also mean that simply you never talked about goals or mission or vision or culture or principles and values. So if you never talked about this, most likely people are not aligned at all. So that can also be an example here. So let's take this to practice.